Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philosophive. I'm your host Justin Land, and today I'm with Porter Singer, formerly known as Sergen Kaur, actually still known as, but she'll get into that I think a bit later. She's a musician and a spiritual teacher, and she's been on the show before. I'm very happy to have her on again. Hello, Porter.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Good,
Good. No,
good.
so a big change, of course, with the name change, and yeah, of course, I'm very curious about that. What the motivation was and is, and how that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm going through like the reverse right now of what I went through in changing it the first time, because I was Porter Singer and then Sergen Carr and then now Porter Singer again. But I'm not really, because I'm not legally Porter Singer anymore. I'm legally Sergen Carr Galta. Um, but I'm also like, uh, so in certain places, like I have to sign off as my legal name, which is my spiritual name. Anyway, it also just sort of brings me to a place of like understanding the true sort of, in a sense, arbitrariness of calling someone anything, because I've been me throughout all of this, and named a bunch of things. But okay, so I started thinking about doing this change. Gosh, maybe like a year ago. I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a while since it's been on my mind. And I think it was because I was pursuing spirituality outside the realm of, I was doing Kundalini yoga, and I was practicing Sikhism. And from a truly like, uh, I don't know, from a truly like integral perspective, I think I still do practice Sikhism very much, like in the way that it was intended in the beginning. Just like I feel like, Christians are not necessarily practicing Christianity nowadays. And, but anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So I do still feel connected to these traditions, but I don't necessarily want to only create music within that realm. And I felt that if I continued to keep this name Sergen Kaur, that it would, I don't know, that I'd be getting some hate mail from, the fundamentalist Sikhs who are like, why are you recording pop music? That's not the real reason. But I was just thinking about how it kind of just pegs me into one genre. It's like, I don't know, if I called myself like classical Porter and I wanted to do hip hop or something, but I don't know, that might be kind of funny and ironic. But um, so yeah, I was thinking about it then. I don't think it was like a big enough reason for me to actually do anything about it, though. And like I was telling you before we started recording, um, it was this thing like that seemed just so big in my mind. Like it was going to be so difficult to make this transition. All like the legal stuff. And I think in my mind too, I was going like, I'm going to have to do it like overnight and make sure everything is the same, and all my bios are going to have to change, and my credit cards and my like. Um, and then something just shifted about a week ago or a couple weeks ago, where I was like, suddenly this doesn't seem like such a big shift to make, and I can do it in as much time as I want. Like it doesn't have to be an instantaneous, thing. So I was like, all right, I'll just say that I'm doing it. And it felt really good, and I changed my name on Facebook. So really nowhere else except my website. Um, I don't know what to do with my Instagram handle, because if I change it, then I have to reroute everything. So it's a little messy and not super organized. And also I'm legally Sergen Carr, like I mentioned. So
Mhm.
having to sign off in that way for things. But I think it became like super obvious to me that I needed to do it when I started going into like the dark world of Kundalini yoga and the Yogi Bhajanist cult kind of stuff, and started talking with survivors and reading people's stories and just getting into like a really dark space around that. Um, it was at that moment where I really decided I did not want to be associated with this tribe. and it's maybe unfair too, because like the name is Sikh, and I don't associate all that stuff with Sikhs because they had nothing to do with what Yogi Bhajan did. But because the spiritual name was given to me by the Kundalini yoga community, um, it doesn't just feel Sikh, because I could be Porter Singer and be Sikh. You know,
Right.
it was the Kundalini Yoga community that suggested that I change my name, not legally. There was no like forcing there, but
Mhm.
there
So,
is a high value placed on spiritual names.
so I mean, a kind of an impetus for this was, of course, the allegations, and seems to be coming to light a lot of bad
Yeah,
things
stuff
that
I'd never
he
heard before.
did, and then this was really pushed you to cut off something, a part of you that I mean that you've kind of outgrown, of course. And I think as and it's interesting as an artist, anyways, this reinvention of self happens quite often. I think it's you know, a lot of pop singers don't want to be pop singers anymore. They kind of change their day. I know like Justin Timberlake was an example of, you know, he didn't change his name, but you know,
Right.
but it's part of the whole thing, you know, where you know you're associated with something, and but you're so much more. And I think that's kind of for your, I think for yourself, I think it's opens up a lot of possibilities to, you know, I mean, obviously you're big for you know, a lot of the mantras, and on the, and I would guess what do you call it, yoga music, uh you know, a lot of, get a lot of views and people know you from that. But I'm guessing that yeah, you might just be getting, is it possible you're just getting tired of that, doing that type of music as well?
Um, no, I really enjoy doing mantra music. I'm getting tired of doing only that music. Um, but I'm definitely not tired of doing mantras. I think I'll keep doing that. It's just this whole revelation with the, you know, the Yogi Bhajan allegations, which by the way were not new. I mean, they've been out there for years. I just never really paid attention to it and didn't go so deep into it as to go, oh my God, what? Like it was so much worse than I ever imagined, you know. It's like,
I guess we should, I think we should probably go into this a little bit. Maybe you can enlighten the audience and myself as well, who this
yeah,
woman is and what exactly are we talking about here.
yeah. So I mean, you know, there's some like cult websites and things, and I was trying to explain this to someone the other day. It's like when you find something that you love, you know, you find like this spiritual practice and this beautiful community of like bright smiley faces and, you know, all this thing. And then there's these like websites that are all these sort of anonymous like hate letters basically, you know, these people were hurt, you know. So like it doesn't read like journalism, it reads like, you know, opinion. And so from a perspective of somebody not knowing who's writing this and also not really knowing what happened to them for them to feel this way, um, it was easy, I think, for people to write this off as bad Amazon reviews, basically, you know, like okay, but I enjoy the product, so I don't care that they gave it 1 star, you know, sort of thing. Um, which is unfortunate because it would really be, you know, behoove people to understand the full context of this before they get so involved. Um,
Maybe I should just interrupt.
so
I'm just, I should have asked this, you know, a proper host would have started this, but I mean, we have to start with, obviously, who he is, the founder of Kundalini Yoga, or who was he exactly?
it's a tricky conversation to have. Yogi
Okay.
Bhajan created what he called Kundalini Yoga. Kundalini is a yoga term and it's by no means his. So if you teach or practice Kundalini Yoga, you say Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan. And it envelops an entire world of practices. I mean, it envelops like a full day meditation course called White Tantric. It envelops a whole life philosophy called humanology, um, a, you know, a sleep or like a relaxation deep healing practice called Satnam Rasayan, as well as the Kundalini Yoga, which are kriyas and mantras and all these things. And one of the things that's come out, and this is new, is this academic paper written by, I really need to memorize this guy's name, Philip something, but it's called From Maharaj to Mahan Tantric. It's an academic essay, and if you're interested in Kundalini Yoga at all, it is a must read, because unlike any of the stuff that you get from Kundalini Yoga teacher training, this is all footnoted and actually researched. And so the teachers who are teaching Kundalini Yoga to to people who are becoming teachers and teacher trainings are giving you like a, you know, gigantic manual of information, and none of it is footnoted. Okay, so it's like, some of it comes from yoga, from like basic yoga tradition, and like that is sort of generally acceptable, but a lot of it, it's like, where did he get this stuff? And so when you come into it and you go, wow, that's really cool, that's really cool, that's really cool, that I don't so much vibe with this, um but I it was actually kind of embarrassing for me. I'm like, why didn't I ask more questions? Why wasn't I a little bit skeptical? Because I think you want to be part of this world so badly that you're just kind of willing to go, okay, you know, you have no evidence for that. I'll try it. So I did a lot of that. I was like, well, let me try that. For example, he teaches, not to cut your hair. Okay. So I stopped shaving and all this stuff. And I tried that out for a good long while. um uh what else, to
What
that
did you,
it helps meditate, it helps you meditate if you cover your head. That's another thing.
with without the hair thing, what's the benefit of that? And what did he?
The benefit is supposedly your body uses up energy to grow the hair, so when you're constantly cutting it, you're like wasting energy basically.
Okay.
Right. I mean, it must be a pretty insignificant amount of energy too, you have to consider,
Mhm.
because I've done both, and I must admit that I'm not like exhausted now that I shave my legs, you know.
Well, it's
So
convenient though. I mean, I guess if everybody just doesn't shave, that just takes a whole kind of thing out of the picture of,
it
things that you
does,
have to
yeah.
do. I mean,
It helps you focus. I mean, so much of it did help me focus, and so much of what I did was beneficial to me at the time. I mean, so it's not like I was totally duped and one day I looked in the mirror and was like, why have I been, I don't know, hurting myself all these years? It wasn't like that. But it did sort of make me question it. I grew up in a very open-minded household, and we weren't religious and stuff, so I think I just like wanted to know what it felt like to live within really like strict parameters or something.
it was out
um
of the army, right?
yeah, I don't think I could have done that. It had to be spiritual, I think.
Right. Okay.
I always admired my friends that went to church. I always wanted to go with them. um and I knew that I could be part of anything if I just sort of like auto translated in my head, like oh, I understand the intention of this, as opposed to what was being said. But yeah, it's I think you started with like kind of, the overall thing. So Yogi Bhajan was this teacher. He came with this wave of, Eastern teachers, from India that came in like the 60s era. And people were, coming off drugs. And so it was a very, I guess, empowering way of life for them, as opposed to sort of being like, high all the time, where they could make themselves high. This is sort of how he marketed, I think, to the hippies. And like the long hair and no shaving, check, check. We were already doing that.
Yes.
Um, and so I think it appealed to a certain kind of person. And he used women. He used these, women who he made his secretaries. He had like this whole fleet of secretaries whom I'm going to post this podcast, but one of the survivors that I talked to, she said that they would keep all of the books in the press that he was mentioned in at the time, like anything that he was mentioned in, even if it was slanderous, even if it was horrible, they would put it in this library. And he was almost always referred to as having a harem, you know. Um, so he had this, fleet of secretaries, and they were like the bright shiny faces of, that brought people in. I think this is something that was brought up to me by Matthew Remski, who enjoys talking about cults. But so one of these such characters was this woman Pamela, who he changed her name to Premka, which by the way means girlfriend in Punjabi.
Appropriate.
um, so she ended up writing a book about her experience in this community, family, cult. Josh was encouraged me not to call it a cult, but for for all intents and purposes. And so she came out with this book right after this guy, about a year after, I think, the guy published that academic paper. So there was sort of this series of things. And I think people were just kind of more ready now, having lived through this. And what also happened since the, from the time that she was in the cult to when she published the book, Pamela, is that an entire generation of people had gone through Kundalini Yoga, KRI, Sikh Dharma. There's so many organizations. That's the other thing. It's like, it's just so pervasive. If you drink yogi tea, that's
I drink it. I love it because it has the little, in Germany, it has the little like sayings or mottos on the paper. Is it in America the same way? I love those. Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast. But yeah, in Germany, I think it might even be bigger than here. The yogi tea.
No,
but anyway,
very tasty. What's up?
I don't remember where I was going with that. Actually.
Well, I think you were going. Now, I guess we can maybe like the allegations. I'm assuming are of sexual nature.
I will just finish this. Sorry. So the whole generation of people had come through the practice through their parents, because their parents joined. They were born into it, and then they were trafficked. Basically, I mean, to really put it bluntly. I had never thought about it that way, but I looked up the definition and it's pretty accurate. They were sent to live with other families. So like a 2-year-old would be sent to go live with some family in, Virginia or Miami or wherever, to be away from their parents so that their parents could now serve Yogi Bhajan, right? Because they now had a ton of free time. And they would be put to work. They would do chores. They wouldn't really have any sort of schooling. And then when that system sort of fell apart because some of the parents were noticing, I guess, that their children were being neglected, the brilliant idea was proposed that they all be sent to boarding school in India.
How many kids are we talking about?
I don't know. That would be, I think there are a lot of them who have written about this. And I think there was even like a documentary that didn't quite get finished. They have a lot of stories to tell. I certainly am not in a position to tell their stories, but as an overview, I think that did help to kind of shed some light on the whole organization, because now you have all these children who have, been through very traumatic experiences and telling their parents. So there's sort of a lot. I think there was just more room for stories to be shared.
Right. And so we're talking about abuse of also like forcing people to do things like in kind of slave mentality.
Physical abuse, emotional abuse.
Yeah. I'm guessing sexual abuse, right? That's the big one, yeah.
That you don't hear about as much. I haven't. Of course, it is a very touchy subject, so it's possible that we don't hear about that from the kids because they just don't want to talk about it. But I don't know. So I do know about a lot of beating and a lot of emotional.
But in Bajam's harem, those women like Pamela, I'm assuming that she was saying that she was brainwashed and she didn't want to be part of his harem.
She was sleeping with him willingly, but she was recognizing in her like reflections how influenced she was by this whole, ideology around him, which influenced her decision, I think. But yeah, a lot of women he raped, a lot of women he, molested or sexually harassed, or I know a couple of women who, were had this done to them. My mom did, which is so weird, that she told me, like, when I started telling her about this, she was like, well, yeah, Julie's friend Nadia. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Is your mom also in the community, or she's
no, she was in LA though. I was in LA until I was about 5 or 6. And so she did business in LA, and she knew people who knew him. So
the interesting thing about this, and taking it back to the Josh, Josh, I was also listening to his answers, I think, to you and some others who are in that community. And one of the things is that it's a necessary thing that these institutions have to fall down. And we would not have necessarily perceived it until we were ready to perceive, like you're saying, it wasn't relevant for you, and that's okay, because for your story, it's different. You benefited, and now you don't need it anymore. And I think that break is interesting because, yeah, I think it allows you to explore other things now, and then that makes it kind of a clear, for other people it's kind of iffy, they feel so drawn to the church or some other institutions, um, and they're shocked when something happens, and then they feel like they want to break off with that, and but others it's like, maybe they need the break from it, to really expand whatever their consciousness or their perception of reality, and that requires some sort of reason, and so it's funny how it does serve.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can I goldfish on your counter?
Yes.
That's a great calm answer. Mine is in the other room.
Robert, enter. Can you close the door though? Thank you.
Yeah, mine's in the other room. He's hasn't come out yet, so all good. I mean, yeah. So how are you doing with the whole staying at home thing?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's sort of funny. And I even asked Josh about this actually. I'm like, so I put my kids in school for 6 whole weeks because they've been homeschooling until February. So, February, I was like, I think it's time they go to school. And so they went to school for 6 weeks and then they were home again.
How's paradise for you, the 6 weeks, and then?
What a great 6 weeks. I was getting kind of used to it. My 4-year-old gets to go to preschool with like a very limited number of kids. It's funny. They're like very, they're very careful. Like, so they're all wearing masks and gloves, and they convinced the kids that they're wearing ninja masks,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was really cute.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. And I was a little bit hesitant to leave him there. I'm not afraid of the virus. Like, I have to just put that out there. Like, everybody's walking around with their gloves and their masks and stuff. And I'm not and I get it. And I'm compassionate. I'm not personally afraid of anything in that way. I was afraid of my son going to school with all these masked people and how that would impact him emotionally.
Yeah.
So I was looking in there like, okay, we'll see. It looks like he's doing okay. Like, he's willingly walking in, and then he came out and he was like, my mask has my name on it.
Nice.
Like,
Yeah,
I had the best day
nice
ever.
packaging. Yeah. So I mean, it's new times. I hear it's not. I mean, in Leipzig, it's pretty low key. There's not a lot of people wearing masks or
Okay.
gloves, and yeah, I do go out in the park, and things are closed, but it feels like there's relaxing of the rules a little bit, maybe, and because yeah, it seems like,
You live kind
yeah.
of in a small town?
No, Leipzig's a 500,000, so
Oh, okay,
it's
okay.
a pretty big one, and I heard, I guess Seattle and New York are two very big hotspots. So
Yeah. Yeah, although, I mean, one thing I noticed even before this virus was just how amazing the people here are at following rules. They're really good rule followers.
in
I mean, we have a
Seattle,
lot of people in the tech industry.
okay.
Well, I'm kind of outside. I live in Redmond.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, because you think, well, Seattle's where the whole grunge community came from. You're thinking like, oh, it's kind of a rebel
That
area.
must be why, right? If your parents are like that, then you're
Yeah,
gonna
reactionary. Yeah. Yeah, that could be true. Yeah, that's and funny enough, you think that Germany is very rule oriented as well, but there's a certain softness to it. They don't. I don't think they can do draconian measures or martial law. Especially given the history here, it's a very interesting situation because the rights of the individual and the ideas, the suppositions about potentialities that you can't prove. It's like driving a car, of course, is endangering other people as well. We still do it. I mean, it's like, well, technically, if you want to get very strict about protecting people, you would reduce how much they're driving cars. You would reduce a lot of things. And what's the point of this? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so I'm going with the flow, and it feels at the moment nice. And I'm guessing for creative people like yourself who into music is especially can be a very productive time because
it requires some silence I don't have, but I'm trying.
Okay. And then so you like when you do your music, I mean obviously the writing the songs, that's something you do, and then I know you do a lot of collaborations, and Songs of Eden. I was a big, I'm a
Hmm.
big fan of the work you guys do together. Why is it always the Scandinavian guys that are really good at very atmospheric music? I don't.
Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah.
He just, I send him something and like 2 days later he sends me back the whole like thing. I don't even know how he does it.
What do you send them
He
exactly?
I send him basic chords and a vocal line. Um and because that's all he needs. Like, I mean, I guess like, I could do more, but that's all he needs. And so that's the scratch vocal. And then he sends me back an entire background, whatever. And usually it's just perfect. Sometimes maybe I'll be like, no, I don't even think I've ever sent anything back. I think it's been great. And then I will record all my vocals. So I'll record like my main vocal and the harmony vocals and whatever. And I've learned now that I have to edit my own vocals because he's not super into like the detaily, like remove this breath and stuff like that. That's not really where he excels, and he spends enough time making the music anyway. I don't expect him to be doing that. But it was sort of like just getting to know you kind of, work wise. I'm doing that now, so I'm feeling good about that because then I don't have to ask him to do it and send it back, and it's like this whole back and forth. So usually, I send it back. He mixes the vocals. Sometimes I'll be like, could you make these a little bit, bigger, or I don't know, paint it differently or whatever. And then he masters it, and we're done.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, the raw Maj, that just like shut out at me. I mean, it's epic.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
definitely. So you sent, from it's a mantra. Uh, that's Rama Sat. What's the whole?
Ra 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 ma 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 ma. So this is one of those where we have no idea where it comes from. Kundalini or Yogi Bhajan could have made it up. Like you could say, you will be saying this mantra, you'll be saying pi, 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 nai, 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 sai, 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 but but it's using words from, from his background. So I don't know. It could have been something that somebody taught him. He could have just made it up. Um,
But Rama's
so
sun, right? The sun
uh-huh.
and Ma is
Yeah, yeah.
the moon,
So
right?
they all mean something, like they all have a significance. Yeah. But we don't know, but there's no footnote. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, that's you know, it's yeah. I guess the tones are nice and they fit, and I think that's
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
He actually, that one was different. He had something he'd already worked on, and I think that was one of the first things we did. And then he asked me to sing over it, and that mantra just came to me. I'd never even really recited that mantra before, but it would just fit perfectly in
Yes,
there.
it did. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Very beautiful, and yeah, it's well, another big. If you can work with somebody like Kygo, that would be. Did you
Who's
still have,
that?
you haven't heard Kygo? Wow, he
Uh-uh.
does Firestone, Stole the Show. He does a lot of remakes of Whitney Houston, Higher Love.
Okay. Kaigo.
YGO. He's from Norway.
KYGO.
But Avicii and all these Scandinavian producers are really, they do very upbeat music
Mm,
that an atmospheric music, and I just this is like that's why I was
good.
thinking he must be part of that school or generation of
Yeah, I don't know. I know that he did pop, like actual pop music before this. I think he kind of wanted a career change.
mm,
It'd be cool to interview him.
yes, no, I'd be
He's a
cool to
cool
have
guy.
both of you on the
Yeah.
awesome, just how that comes together, especially with the distance, and like you're saying, you have a vision and you write it down and you have the chords, and you trust enough to send it to
Yeah.
somebody.
Well, that's a huge thing because in telling people about this, I've realized that it does work so beautifully for me because I don't have an attachment to how it's going to sound when it comes back. I'm just like always delighted, like, oh wow, I never would have thought of that, you know. So it's not, so if you're like, which I've been this type of, you know, musician, like if you're looking for a specific way that you want it done, this is probably not the way to go. But for me right now, it's working perfectly.
It's allowing way though. It's the Joshua way. I mean,
Mhm.
it's basically, you know, do what your strengths are, you know, and then whatever you're motivated by, like you said, if somebody's not motivated with, you know, editing the vocals too much because that's too tedious, there's somebody else who's loves to do that, that's why all these, you know, bands work so well. I think that they're the personalities and what they love to do, the other guy didn't love to do, and that's why these, I think,
Mhm.
collaborations really work. And I know the one thing that's missing is I guess the in the studio together. You know, I think that's obviously you did some obviously work with producers in studios
Mhm.
and
I've done it a few ways. So the way that like for example, one of the biggest artists in the Kundalini yoga world is Sanatam, and I think I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure the way she does her albums is the way that I did my album with her producer. Um, and that's a very similar way to what we're talking about, because basically she just goes in. I'll speak for myself. I went in, we put down a scratch track, which is actually pretty detailed. He gets it like pretty down. I put the vocals down for him to work with. He creates the whole thing. He has all the artists come in, like I'm not there, you know, I do my part and I leave, and then a few months later all of the instrumentals are done, and then he has me come back in and do the vocal, you know. So that wasn't very participatory, um, but it was a beautiful album. And I've also done it where like
which album was
that,
that?
that was Dayal.
The okay, it was what is the one, I am the light of my soul, which is that, does that come from one of your albums or?
That's my first ever album
Okay,
in the mantra genre. Yeah.
that's a beautiful song, and that was very nice
Yeah. And
vocals and
we
instruments.
did all of that. We produced it,
Okay,
and it was the lowest budget album with the most amount of plays for a song.
isn't that funny
Um
how that works sometimes? Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's funny. I don't think either of us ever thought that album would still be listened to. I mean, yeah.
You hear that very often with like if you love musicians, they're like they have no idea why that song was, you know, blew up or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
why they had this other song they were so positive, it's so amazing, and then nobody's really listening,
Right.
but they're all looking, and it's like, okay, you know,
Well, it's funny because dude, sorry,
no, please, no, no, of course, right?
it's funny because it's another duality thing for me. So like one of the reasons I think that song did so well is because White Tantric Yoga, which is under the branch, the big, you know, branch of Kundalini Yoga tree, um, used it as the soundtrack to their slideshow of Yogi Bhajan photos that they play on every break of White Tantric Yoga. And White Tantric Yoga happens several times during the year, like all over the world. So that song was getting played everywhere, and people were listening to it sometimes all day long.
Right, you can do that with that song, yeah, I
So
mean,
it, you know, at some point they'd be like, "What is this song?" I don't know. I'm just guessing.
yeah.
Um, but I've been told that you know, it's like they never changed the song, and they can, you know, it's like the one that goes along with the DVD, but you could totally mute it and play other music. But some people just don't. So that song got a lot of plays. So it's like on the one hand, you know, there's this practice that's probably totally made up by this guy, and it's actually, but you know, by this guy, but it like served to, you know, it's hilarious. I'm
There's
not
not,
totally.
but it's funny because it like, did he claim that it comes from ancient, or there's some sort of grounding? You were saying like
Yes,
he claimed that.
he claimed that he was given the title of Mahan Tantric by the soul, the etheric body of a, I know I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this wrong, I apologize, but like a lama, like some
Right.
Buddhist lama, I think,
Hmm.
because their teacher gave him, the lama, this title. It only belongs to one person ever on the planet. This is the story. And when the Lama died, he felt it.
Hmm.
So I mean, and the one of the things that this article, the Maharaj to Mahan Tantric says is that there is no living record of this Lama. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he never existed, but it definitely doesn't prove that he did. so yeah, it's very interesting. But I mean, just the story, it's like very mythical, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't say, and then my like he didn't just say, and then my teacher bestowed the title of Mahan Tantric to me. It's like, no, my teacher gave it to someone else. Then he died,
Right.
and then I was given it from the non-physical. I mean,
Right. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always with a lot of these um, teachings, you do have that coming into it, and it's I mean, with the Mormons, of course, there's something in there with like a UFO giving a gold tablet that I mean, I'm getting this wrong, but
oh, that he found, yeah, I
don't-
don't know. I actually, that's the other tradition that I'm kind of familiar with, because my ex-husband's family was Mormon.
right.
So I've just heard a lot of stories, but I know that he got a tablet. I thought it was God that gave him to
No,
it.
and that was probably a pretty messed up interpretation. It was an angel of some sort, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know why
Yeah.
it's UFO, but it could be. I mean, like
There is some very like, wow, that is a story. Oh my gosh.
yes, but we're living in a story, so like it's the more and more,
Mhm.
the guys with the big imaginations, they're Hubbard
Sure.
too, Ron Hubbard with Scientology. I mean, we can knock it as much as we can't want to, and and whatever the practice is, of course, there's a lot, but inevitably, any system with these, control systems, mechanisms, people want, like you're saying, you wanted that too. We're bouncing around in this conversation, but
Mhm.
I think
It feels safe. I think it
right,
feels safe.
right. No, and you get something out of it, but the coming at some point you want to come out of that body of thought and those controlled, because you're expanding, and
Mhm.
you can't expand within confines of thought. Thought wants
Yeah.
to go out further. I mean, it doesn't want to think about yesterday so much. Yesterday is not relevant now. We live in a world that's inventing itself over and over again from the past, but the past is literally non-existent. It's like we're in
Mhm.
the now, and we're carrying all this stuff into it, and because it feels
Yeah.
safe, like you said, it feels safe, but it was never, I mean, this was never meant, I think, to be like that. It's more a creative process of self-exploration, and so everybody, it can be their own guru. It's not
Mhm.
and then that's what's happening at this point. You're getting a lot of people who are like yourself and others who are just finding it in themselves, and that's what comes to you. I think it's a great thing with your name change thing coinciding with this, and going through the whole process with the boot camps with Joshua, and that I think that kind of, it's nice to have a marker of that sort. Like, I'm not the person I never was that anyways, but it's like
Mhm.
maybe we should all do that, like every day, give ourselves a new name. I feel like being called Teddy. I mean, whatever. I mean,
That's like what 5-year-olds do. That's what I used to do when I was little.
seriously,
Yeah.
give yourself a new name.
It's funny actually, because when I was Porter Singer before, legally, I never wanted to say I was Porter Singer. I wanted to be Porter. So I have another album that's actually just Porter. I didn't want to use my full name.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. And now I'm like, and I actually am unable to separate that name from a band by the same name. Like, it's in process. So I can't use that name, just Porter, until it separates, which has left me in this kind of limbo of like, maybe I should just use both my names. Maybe I should use my whole name, maybe
Yeah.
I should just
Your
be
name's
all of
PS
me.
too. PS. That's a nice
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Porter. But there's also Gregory Porter, right? Or is it? Um, he's a
Cole Porter.
I forget. He's a really big singer. And doesn't do R&B, but great
Oh,
voice.
okay.
But yeah, obviously there was like, it seems like it was a predestined that you have this name, you know. And it's like you wrote on your website, I think it is like a,
Yeah, I always felt so because my parents, you know, we had this. There was this big, you know, mythological story around my name.
Mhm.
That you know, so they say that they were sleeping one night. My mom was pregnant. They weren't going to determine the sex of the baby, so they didn't know I was going to be a girl. They're both artists, and they wake up from this dream that they both have, and they're like, I just dreamt about our baby. And they're like, okay, go into the other room and draw the baby and, you know, write down the name. And so they like compare notes, and it's like this identical looking baby girl named Porter. And I would always hear this story and be like, couldn't it have been like a different name in the dream? Because I never liked it.
No, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's like so you're saying your parents they were open-minded, and but obviously they realized this is a non-physical connection happening.
Yeah, I don't, my dad's not, yeah, no, I would say that. They're both they're both pretty spiritual. I'm not sure if they realized that it was like, you know, I'm not sure that they realized it at that level, that it was like a message from the non-physical.
What else could it be? It doesn't. I mean, like the explanations for things are very, you know, if
I
people have
think, you know, it would have
they
been like a premonition maybe, or like intuition or something, you know, like, because I think we use these words, right? And we don't really think about the full view of them. And even when we say non-physical, like I was reading something from Astrid the other day, like you basically just go into the next dimension. But once you're there, there's more to understand. So, you know.
the differences are, you know, obviously I would say that everything is not physical. It's indeterminate in some respect. You know, it's just we're determining with our focus. We're saying that's something, but that something is obviously part of infinity, and
Right.
it's not a form. You know, we're just giving it a form. So I would say formless maybe is a better term. I have no idea. I guess we have to
Yeah.
die and find out. I don't know.
I think that's what I think that's what happens. So
Yeah.
I think the fun is the kind of not knowing and the wondering. So
No, absolutely. No, I mean, yeah. But I think maybe that's a good point to maybe, I guess, close the podcast because, yeah, I think we jumped around a lot, but I
yeah.
got back to your name, and I wish you much success, and you know, I'm looking forward to whatever music or creativity that comes out of this this change is happening in you, and exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Enjoy your day.
my evening. It's
Your
here
evening. That's
9
right.
o'clock. Yeah, yeah. So it's
All
coming
right.
to an end.
Well, your next day.
Yeah. Enjoy your day, and till next time, right?
Yes.
All
All
right.
right. Bye.
Bye.